Well, good evening, folks. Thanks for this opportunity to share some thoughts on drafting a Scottish Constitution. Allow me to introduce my co-trustees. John Hutchison from Fort William.
Hello there.
Lorraine Cowing from Addington. And Ronnie Morrison from Helensburgh. Let me start this by providing a little background to this constitutional debate. 11 years ago, a group of some 22 Scots took the decision to draft a written constitution rather than talk about the need for one. Some 2.5 years later, the results were assessed by Dr. Elliot Bulmer, who at that time was the research director for the Scottish Constitution Commission. Elliot considered that the drafted document was 93% of the way to a working constitution, and that it should now be put out to public review. We attempted to do that, but we got no backing whatsoever from Holyrood. Since then, the original draft constitution has been periodically reviewed and updated to meet developing constitutional needs. So, governance. Of the 195 sovereign states in the world, only 3 do not have a written constitution. We live in one of them. There are 2 primary forms of governance. One, parliamentary sovereignty that we currently live under. It holds that the government has absolute sovereignty and that it is not bound by written law or by precedent. The second system, popular sovereignty. That's what Scotland aspires to. It holds that the people are the ultimate source of authority of the government, which derives its right to govern from their consent. The powers of government being limited by law and a written constitution, which those in power obey. A constitution, it's a collection of basic laws that protects our rights and freedom, our institutions and customs, collectively forming a general system to which the people have agreed to be governed. A constitution is, in effect, a job description for those who govern. Now, as Scotland moves inevitably towards independence, we have an opportunity to shape our future by writing our own constitution, ready for implementation on Independence Day. Of the drafted constitutions for Scotland currently in circulation, and there are 5 of them, only the version provided by us, the Constitution for Scotland, offers an opportunity for everyone to directly contribute to the content. We do this through CONSUL, a well-established, internationally recognized, and United Nations commended consultation platform. Tonight, we're going to show you how to get involved to help build your country's constitution. Now, in global terms, Scotland is an average-sized country, but importantly, a relatively wealthy, resource-rich country. As a devolved nation, Scotland already has in place, either wholly or partially, around 80% of the governmental institutions required for self-governance. 80%. So where does the authority to govern us currently come from? In today's devolved Scotland, it is solely politicians who set out the rules by which we are governed. Yet, as seen all too often in politics, power tends to corrupt. And yes, here in Scotland too. Therefore, there needs to be enforceable limits to regulate the conduct of those who wield the political power. Limits that are set out in a written constitution agreed by us, the people. Now, such documents are usually considered the province of politicians and lawyers. But here, the fundamental principles are set out in clear terms, in the form of a model constitution that is written in everyday, easy-to-read language, in order to stimulate debate on specific proposals, rather than vague notions. But in itself, it's not prescriptive. So when you open up the Constitution for Scotland website, you are entering an interactive consulting platform where you can move seamlessly around after you register and sign in. The core of the consultation is the model constitution that's set out in two parts: a summary and a fully detailed interactive constitution. I understand that Brian's actually sent you round a copy of the summary. If you don't have much time, you can register, read the summary, and then make a quick vote to indicate your general support. And I would emphasize that we need to actually see these actual votes taking place in order for us to judge the level of support. And then when you're ready, you can move to the interactive constitution, which consists of a framework of articles with multiple sections, each of which has links to where you can post comments, propose amendments, additions, or deletions, and most importantly, participate in a voting process, which automatically ranks all the amendments by popular vote. You can return to the site again and again to see the latest vote counts or to update your own input and vote. Remember, if enough of us have voted, then it will be difficult for the politicians to ignore us, as they have a tendency to do. An independent Scotland can be all the things we want it to be. We have a young parliament, relatively young, that is still open to change. It isn't tied to the past, and we must not let it become set in its ways. The Scottish Parliament, in conjunction with civic society, think tanks, education system, and industry, can mould and shape our country into the nation that we know it should be, the nation it must be if we are to collectively fulfill our potential. This registered charity, Constitution for Scotland, is not connected to any political organisation, and the platform is available to everyone. So this is an opportunity for you to have your say in shaping Scotland's future. Thank you. I'd now like to hand over to my colleague John, who will demonstrate how to use the interactive platform. Thank you. John.
Okay, grand. Thanks very much, Paul. So hopefully you can see my screen now? Somebody just needs to say yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
just the job. Great, thanks. So, as Bob says, Constitution for Scotland is a charity. It's not party political, and you can see on the website here that our sole purpose is to conduct and administer a public consultation. That's our charitable aim, and any of you who've been involved in trying to set up a charity knows that you've got to adhere really closely to your charitable objects. I'm going to highlight our website up the top here because it's going to change, and it's important that you're aware of that. So constitutionforscotland.scot is where it is at the moment, and we'll move seamlessly into the interactive platform shortly. You don't need to worry about that, it just happens. So that we didn't invent this ourselves. We've used this internationally recognized platform called CONSUL. It's used in many countries around the world, and it's got this UN Public Service Award. It's headquartered in Spain, so you can see where we're going here. I need to come out of it, I think. Yeah, it's headquartered in Spain, so you can see there how it's expanded into South America, so that kind of explains that. But the website also mentions that it's free. Now it's free to a certain extent, as these things always are, but we have had to interface with that, so that's fundamentally where our costs have been involved. So the platform's in two parts. There's a traditional website that you're looking at the moment, and then there's a consultation. Visitors can see both parts, but to interact, you need to register and then sign in. And of course, the other reason you need to register is to stop multiple votes, to ensure that the public consultation is done properly, and so that we can defend to people who will undoubtedly criticise what we're doing here, we can defend that the consultation and the voting's been done in a proper way. So if folk like yourselves just take a wee look at the first part of the site and say, well, that's kind of nice, they're drafting a constitution, that's not really good enough. We need you to engage. We need evidence that you've done so. We need to build numbers, as Bob said, so you must register. So this is us looking at the first part of the website here. It's got the usual pages up here about the organisation, a glossary of common terms, a background, in other words, why we're doing it all, a contact page which takes you to myself and to Ronnie, and then there's a sign in that we'll come back to in a wee minute. Now further down the home page, you'll see these big buttons. Now, once you know what's on the side, once we finish this little presentation, these are probably what you'll use to get to where you want to be in the website. So this is where you can get straight into the model constitution. Here's where you can read folks' comments and proposals. Here's where you register, record a quick vote, and things like that. So looking back now up to the top and onto the constitution page, as Bob mentioned, there's a summary first of all. Each article has got its kind of headline message there, and as you go further down the page, I mean, don't try to read that, I'm just illustrating here. Further down the page, you've got the detail within Article 1 and what all the sections within the articles actually say. If you want to print it off, you can download a PDF here. I think it's about 18 pages or so, and it says 23 there. That's interesting. Anyway, it's not too long, so you can do that there. And as Bob mentioned, there's a quick vote facility, and this is where we're very keen to get endorsement from people. If you don't want to labour through clauses and analyse them and the like, if you want to indicate that you're behind the project and you kind of like what you're feeling, you're seeing overall, then a quick vote is the way to do that. So if we go into the quick vote, what's actually happened here? There's a process, obviously. You'll see that we've moved from the main website into this consultation hub, and we didn't even notice how that happened. So just going back into the main page again. I want to go back into the Constitution page and then just show you what we'll do next. So there's a search box that I switched by earlier on. So if you're interested in a particular topic like tax or land or whatever you want, you can have a look in the search box and that'll take you to the particular sections that you might be interested in. So I'm going to put nuclear in here. It comes up regularly, and so this can instantly show that stuff about nuclear is in Article 15. And once you go down into the detail, again, don't try to read this when I'm zooming down here. Once you get down into Article 15, you'll see something there about the Civil Nuclear Constabulary. Well, that's kind of fine. But also further down, there's highlighted about the prohibition of nuclear weapons and the like. And basically, that's what people really want to see. So if you then think, well, I wonder what people are saying about this. If you click on one of the links, as you see are live there. So this takes us automatically back into the hub. So here's the article, you're seeing it there. And this going down the page takes you to the sections in which you can propose amendments, or you can vote on the article that's in front of you. On this section, given that we're in the hub, you'll see there's a place where we detail our moderation policy, because if people are using inappropriate language or just need a wee bit of guidance on how they're doing things, moderators are keeping an eye on the website. So that policy is all detailed in there. And similarly, the guidelines on how to post amendments are in here. I'm not going to open these just now. That'll just take us, that'll just take time. So if we have a look here, we can see we can vote there. Now you got that little message, look at that. What happened there? If you want to try to vote, you need to sign in to vote or sign up. So at the moment we can read the comments, but you can't actually make any comments yourself until you sign in. So given that I'm registered already, I'm just going to sign in up here. So I've got a wee message up here to say that I've signed in successfully. So I can now go back down the page and have a look at this in a bit more detail. So you can see that people have made comments here. So if you click on that, you can comment yourself. If you, but what you notice about comments, and there are some further down there, you see these are comments, but you can't actually vote on comments. You can only comment on comments the same way as you would do in a newspaper. So this is why if you've got a tangible proposal to make, you need to make the proposal as an amendment to section 1511. And this is what someone's been trying to do here. So once an amendment has been made, you can then vote on how you feel about that. Also here you'll see there's a little flag. So this is the flag. If you think someone's not been appropriate, you would click on that. That puts up a little flag, and the moderators can take notice of the fact that here's someone thinks that there's something inappropriate going on here. So given that we want to propose an amendment to this clause, so I'm looking here that nuclear material must be removed within 3 years of the date of ratification of the Constitution. So I feel maybe 5 years is better. So I'm going to copy and paste this here. And I'm going to take it down to this box at the bottom. So here's where I propose an amendment. So I'm going to put it in there, and I'm going to tick up here to indicate that I've read the guidelines. So we've done that earlier on. And I'm going to do a brief description of what my change is all about. So I'm going to change range removal This is meant to say removal period. So I'm going to change removal period, if you like, and I'm going to go down here and I'm going to change that to 5. That's me done it. That's me propose an amendment to the Constitution. So if I click that, then that gets published, and then people can look at that and they can vote. They can say, no, I don't really like that. I think we should go for 3. I don't like John's thing. We'll go back and leave it the way it was. So that's how you would put in an amendment. So I've illustrated a kind of simple one there, but that's the basic principle. Further up the page, you can then see the same as when you go on a buying website. The amendments are sorted by the ones that have got most votes, or the newest first or the oldest first. So you can rank these as you want. So that allows the amendments with the greatest number of votes to kind of pop up to the top. So that's basically the overview. Looking back though to the website, and you'll see there we're kind of back out of the consultation hub again, and looking at the consultation page. I'm looking at the summary here, and you can see the breadth of what's there. There's Article 1, as I say, don't try to read it, but Article 1 is about the sovereignty of the people, how citizenship is defined. Article 3 is a kind of interesting one. This is about the head of state, how the head of state is elected and appointed. Not local government, this is national government, the system of constituencies. Item 6 is about how to recall an MP. We gave a talk to Rutherglen recently, so that was kind of interesting to them there. 9 is about the independence of the judiciary. 12 is local authorities and the like. 14 is stuff about environment. 15, security and armed forces. So this constitution is a pretty broad ranging document, as it has to be. We're also aware, I can't recall if Bob actually mentioned, but we're aware that there are other draft constitutions around. We know that there are at least 2 being taken forward by more academic people, but ours is different in 2 ways. Firstly, it's written in ordinary language by and large, and secondly, folk are given the opportunity to have a say and shape the Constitution. So these are our unique selling points, if you like. So as I said earlier, don't just peep at this politely. We do need a register of engagement, and we need you to tell other people about it. Thanks very much. I'll come out of the screen share now, Brian.
Okay, thank you very much.
So I think we're open for questions or comments or whatever you would like to do now, Teresa.
Okay, well, first of all, thanks for that. It was really interesting. I'm going to start off with a couple of questions. I think, Brian, there's somebody else waiting to get in. I don't know if you've checked or he's messaged me anyway. But you know, it really struck me. I've got a few questions. I like, you know, like, for example, when did the citizens' assemblies get included in the Constitution? I like the stuff in the currency. But what struck me, and at first you might think, oh, no, that wouldn't work. But I was just wondering if this would be a great tool to use in schools. It's non-party political. Scotland in the latest PISA score scored really quite high at evaluating information, and it would be a fantastic learning tool and to promote discussion. I was just wondering, and I like the fact it's in plain language, it's interactive. Have you guys done any work on that, or has it crossed your minds?
It certainly crossed our minds, because bearing in mind that we're one of the few nations where our school children are not given some understanding of the constitutions and the laws they live by. So we would dearly like to see it. We have, well, I've certainly approached the local head of our local academy, and I got the message back from her and said that she wasn't being allowed to do anything.
That's a shame. Maybe, I don't know, who am I? Who dare me to suggest it, but maybe going a bit higher, because just having taught at colleges and FE, you could see how this would be an amazing tool for questioning, thinking things through, you know, civic responsibilities. And that's one thing about Scottish education, it's quite open to that. I know, on the other hand, our history's been blocked in various things. Sorry, Lorraine.
I have given information about this to several of my college. I teach in a further education college, and the social sciences courses, I know that some of them are looking at it.
Oh, brilliant. Because you could see it would be great for that. What can I ask as well? When did you introduce the thing about citizens' assemblies into the Constitution? Was that right at the start, or has it only been since citizens' assemblies have become more to the fore?
We did actually talk about this right at the very start of it, but at the time it wasn't thought to be of significant, well, there wasn't public recognition of it at that time, although it had been done and is being done in other nations, because we actually took a long look at quite a number of the constitutions of other nations. However, in our latest major review, which was carried out in 2017, we included in the need for the Assembly at that time.
Good stuff. I'm just wondering out there, for example, Jean or Irene, if you've got any thoughts. Jean's got a background in teaching, or I'm putting you on the spot there, Jean. You have to mute yourself as well.
Yeah, no, I was just wondering, when you were saying that they were blocked, I'm surprised. I'm not sure where that's coming from, or, you know, I was thinking maybe not so much higher, but maybe lower, you know, in terms of like the head of social subjects, rather than, I don't know if you'd approach the head, was it head teachers you were approaching, or?
Head teacher.
Yes, yeah, because you know, like faculty heads might be more you know, open to that kind of contact, and you don't usually need to have clearance. Well, not when I was teaching. I mean, not if you're just presenting about, I suppose it could be construed that you're promoting independence, yes. Mm-hmm.
But really,
yeah.
this is about civics.
Pardon?
This is really about civics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People who are getting scared
Yeah,
off.
that's right. I mean, you could, I mean, but obviously there could be, you know, I could probably imagine the head teachers thinking of letters that'll come in from parents saying that their children were being sort of indoctrinated about independence, that they're, you know, modern studies, social subjects, whatever. So yes,
It is.
which is a great pity, because, you know, just recently, I was involved, actually, it was a parade and young people were at it. I mean, it's quite a while since I was actually working in an actual school, but young folk were at it, and we were sort of handing out leaflets, and the level of lack of engagement or lack of thought was actually really worrying, because, you know, it is part of the curriculum. It should be in social subjects, government, and, you know, all that. So I was quite worried that, you know, young people were saying, well, we haven't thought about it. I don't know anything about this, and such like. So yeah, that was very worrying.
We actually have made an attempt to contact the youth parliament, the rural parliament, etc., and a number of youth organizations. They've acknowledged the actual contact, but never come back to us.
Yeah.
What do you reckon is the percentage of folk in Scotland who realise the situation, that we don't have a constitution, the UK doesn't? And did you say there's 3 states around the world?
Yes. There's the UK, there's Israel and New Zealand.
Okay.
They're
So
the
what
only three without.
do those states that not have constitutions and everybody else does?
The UK is basically a feudal nation, and they want to maintain the power at within certain limits.
Mhm.
In the UK, the power is held by the Westminster Parliament, and a Prime Minister with sufficient votes can change any law in the land.
So another question, does anybody in England or Wales or even Northern Ireland push for a constitution, whether it's for their parts or the UK as a whole, or is that just really just taken off in Scotland?
There are movements in all, well, I know of the movement and been in contact with the movement in England. I've been in contact with the movement in Wales. I've never been in contact with the one in Ireland, but I understand that there are sentiments there, although how organized they are, I do not know.
That's
So yes,
interesting.
there's an underlying movement across the board.
Mhm. So essentially it's, oh, sorry, Brian.
No, I'd just like to say that I've actually been on the site and made some comments. I just need to book some more time in my diary, so I'll go back to it and do some more. And if a dafty like me can do it, it's easy enough.
The more the merrier. It's your constitution that we're trying to actually generate.
Well, we'll post that tomorrow. If a dafty like Brian can do it, anybody can. And here's the link again, and get yourself on. Sorry, Dot, you ever want to say something?
Yes, it was just really to comment on the whole question of governance. As you know, I've been going around stalls talking to people about the Constitution for the last 16 years, all through the summer. And it's not just young people who are totally ignorant. It is something that is just not understood. And of course, as far as other countries are concerned, basically you haven't got any guidelines. And as somebody who was an official, believe me, it's something that impinges on almost everything that goes through government, that they can move the goalposts whenever they want to, as we have seen quite a lot with in recent times with Brexit, that if we'd had a constitution, if the way that Parliament could operate would have was laid down in proper form, then an awful lot of the last 3 years of the argument just could never have happened. But unfortunately, it's not just youngsters who don't know. And of course, what we're doing if we don't teach youngsters is that we're just adding to the sort of general population who know nothing about governance and don't realize how important it is.
Lorraine?
I think certainly when I was at school, we weren't taught about civics and governance and what have you in any great depth at all. And it was all done in a fairly abstract way. And I think it's very deliberately done in this country in that way, because, you know, as Bob says, we are essentially still living in a feudal society. And they can change the goalposts as and when they like. They can make agreements as per the withdrawal agreement and then change their minds. You've got the Seoul Convention and what happened with that. At the same time, it has to be recognised that there are constitutions and there are constitutions. Mm-hmm. I think we can see very clearly from the American Constitution that it's based on, 250 years ago, and for all that there have been amendments, it's not regularly updated or what have you. And Donald Trump has ridden a coach and horses through most of it. It's something that has to be live and a vital part of a nation's story on an ongoing basis, which is one of the reasons why we want to make sure that everybody, whether you're for or against independence is coming.
The best example of an interactive people-related constitution is Switzerland. they estimate they change it every 15 years, but a substantial amount of it's changed every 15 years. But there, that they've been brought up to that system, whereas we've not.
Yeah.
Actually, an interesting point, Lorraine, about the US Constitution. I think most folks know that there were Scots involved in the formation of that. I was just the other day reading an article about the involvement of the Scots in creating the Norwegian Constitution as well. That was an interesting one. I wasn't aware of that.
So what's to stop Scotland and Holyrood, particularly with the SNP, you know, power just now, from at least adopting the parts or progressing parts of the Constitution that is within our powers? Is that being looked at? Or I heard you say at the start that they don't seem to be interested, but even a partial Constitution, the bits we can do at the moment. Oh, Dot's there.
Yeah,
Excuse
just
me,
one
Dave
thing
said he's
about
had
this
it for a while.
information. There is a draft constitution which was put together by the SNP something like 20 years ago. It's a very simple one. I only know about it because at the time I was chairman of New Scots and was consulted by the party, and it really only covers the question of citizenship as we go into independence, and as a result of comments from us, we insisted that they be written into the same. It's sort of just basic gender. Nobody should be treated badly because of gender, religion, etc., etc. It's as simple as that, and I believe it was kept as simple as that because Dr. Neil McCormick, who actually put it together, believed in simplicity. And I remember saying to him once, isn't that a bit bare? And he said, the simpler it is, the better. Look at the Americans. so that's just it. There is something, but it's very, very simplistic.
Yes, he actually wrote a second one as well, which is very much on the same lines. But it was, in fact, an article, a constitution written by a solicitor for a political party. And of course, in the recent, the SNP have come out with an interim constitution as well, basically saying we want the powers of currently held by the Westminster to be transferred to the Holyrood in the Stirling. So in terms of constitution, it's meaningless.
Okay, I think Dave, Lorraine, I think Dave's been wanting to ask a question for a while. Is that right, Dave? You'd have to unmute yourself and then we'll go back to Lorraine.
Teresa, could you excuse me, please? I'm being required to go to a table here.
Okay, John.
Thanks for
We'll
having us.
excuse you. Nice to have you. And Dave, are you wanting to make a comment? You have to unmute yourself. There you go.
Yeah. Thanks, Teresa. Sorry, my kind of ignorance about the whole constitutional issue will probably show up in what my language here, but as I'm aware that what Dot said was definitely enables us to have far more kind of powers, and it certainly prevents Westminster being able to shift the goalposts about to quote Dot. But again, I don't want to be a kind of SNP bashing, but it kind of it saddens my soul sometimes how they're not so proactive. I'm aware, Dot, that you are really forward regards your actions to get things done, but I'd like to see them far more on the media. I just wonder why things like the Constitution, getting them done, and I know it probably might ruffle a lot of feathers if we were to bring this up in a particular interview, but I'd love things like this to really be brought out the kind of closet, so to speak, and really highlighted, rather than just not having a discussion, and it should be in the media, I think, far more. It kind of plays, for me, it constantly plays into subservient approach that, we won't talk about these things because we know, England's our England's gonna, England's our big brother. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying, Dave. Like, we're a country, other countries have a constitution. Why haven't
Yeah.
we one? Why isn't our government flagging that up more in a
Yeah, and
easy
yeah,
way?
yeah, and when it constantly gets rolled out, I'm not posting anything on social media, Facebook just now, but when it constantly gets rolled out by certain sections of the movement, we're a sovereign nation, and we'll get independence. Well, act like one then. Don't just act like the lesser equal partner, So there's a contradiction when you're saying you're a sovereign nation, but we're not really acting like one.
Yes.
We're acting like the subservient one. And I'd love to see that, totally flipped in its head now. But then it should have been done actually 4 or 5 years ago, I really believe. Stuff like this here we're talking about. Again, I don't want to be going into the past, but this is stuff that should be, now. And I'm really thankful that people like yourselves are doing something about it, and I really am.
Yes, Brian.
Right?
Not
This
much
is
of
our
a question.
opportunity. This is all our opportunity now to go and share this. So this video is going to go out later on, and
Oh, you've muted yourself, Brian.
finger trouble. And it's important that we all put to all our networks, we share this information. So that's the media getting told now because they'll pick it up.
Back to Lorraine. Oh, sorry, Dave.
Is the point that one of the, I'm an SNP member, and I have my own frustrations, as I think most of us have. I'm hopeful now that with some changes to the NEC that there might be more movement. However, the Constitution is something that I view as entirely separate from politicians, and very deliberately so, because one of the major purposes of a constitution is to set limits on what politicians can and can't do. So if you let them at it too soon and they get their way with it, then it all starts to get diluted. So I think at this point where we certainly want engagement of politicians, we do not want to be looking to hand this over to any one political party or another who might be seen to have too much influence on it. This is about one person, one vote, and each and every one of us has the same single vote on this constitution as everyone else.
And bearing in mind, Dave, that as far as the Constitution's concerned, you've as much say as the First Minister. The politicians do not have more say than you in the Constitution.
Good point.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Mark and then Jean.
I agree with you, Robert, there, absolutely. But unless, for me, my main gripe has been along generally the media. Unless these things are talked about, and who's got the influence to put them forward, the SNP and the politicians, unless they speak about these things, and it's always going to be in a covert way, it's always going to be kind of underground, and it won't be able to pop its head up and have the light, so to speak, to flourish as it could do. So yeah, I'm saying to every prominent SNP politician, any opportunity, speak about it. Otherwise, it might just not get the nourishment that it needs.
Jean then Dot, because Jean's finger was up a while. Jean?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I think certainly agree with Dave in terms of media attention, but also what Lorraine was saying in terms of it being not linked to a political party. And I think that's a key message where the next independence campaign, I mean, we've not stopped campaigning, but in terms of this ability to vote and to have your views known and together to shape a constitution, because at the moment, a lot of the soft no's and no's are linking, they just see independence as SNP rather than a movement to reclaim by Scottish people to reclaim their own country. And by doing that, through voting on the type of constitution and, the framework that's key for us to move forward. And I think, I think it's a wonderful tool to be publicised and to get people involved, if at all possible.
Good
The
point.
only thing we can provide the platform. It's there for use, but we're not going to get any support from the SNP. The SNP don't really want us to be writing constitutions. They want to write a constitution. The politicians don't wish to be restrained in any way from their freedom of operation. So we're not going to get support from the SNP. Somehow we're going to have to find it from people like ourselves.
What about the leaders of, say, Civic Scotland? Are any of them keen?
Well, we don't actually know at the moment because very few of them are talking. One of the best tools we have is what Brian's actually talking about. He's actually going to publicise this.
Yeah.
Bearing in mind that Scotland has never really accepted the military domination of England. In 1707, our historians tell us that 75% of the people of Scotland were against the Union. 75%. They didn't have a tool like what we have at the moment. So let's use this tool, because how many occasions have the English turned it, oh, the Scots are rebelling. But we're not rebelling. We're saying, it's our country, we just want it back.
I know. Here, here, so say all of us. Doc, did you have your hand up?
Just to say that there is quite a lot of movement amongst those of us who've been pushing for changes, to have a much greater involvement of the ordinary membership in putting together some sort of ideas of what they want to see when we get to independence. And amongst the subjects, one of the ones that I'd like to see a group set up to look into it and report and come back. One is the Constitution and the other is pensions. I think, to get people talking about these things and to come up with something and then see where it goes from there. But as you say, the important thing is to get, whether it's inside the SNP or whether it's in your sort of broader spectrum, it's the important thing is to get people talking. I don't know whether in fact, if you took the existing way we do things, you would have a royal commission, for example, once we get independence. I think we ought to talk about it. I think we ought to lay down some principles. I'm not sure that until we actually get it, we ought to try and sort of vote on it.
Can I, there's one young face that I see looking out at me, and
that must be
rather
me.
quiet, but it is important to actually hear from the young folks as well. Jenny, would you like to make say a few words? What do you think about it?
Well, okay, I'm an SNP member.
That's okay.
But I find that we are pushing a lot at the moment about getting people registered to vote. There's that whole spectrum of young people who haven't voted before and may not vote SNP, but we need to look at them when we're coming up to next referendum. We're looking at them because, let's face it, we're saying there's this total disenfranchisement of people who never vote. They never do anything towards it, whether that's in a referendum or not. And I think I'm with you. I think we need more education in school. I think we should be getting kids registered to vote in school. Mm-hmm. There's no reason why. That's not a party political anything. But as far as the Constitution goes, I think it has to start with them, start with the young ones who, let's face it, are going to be able to access this. There's a massive digital divide still out there who may not be able to access this. But the young ones will.
Yes.
The young ones will, and the young ones will interact with it better on social media as well. So, yeah.
Well, we would appreciate any advice as to how we can actually push it on the social media. We already have a Facebook, but we're not very good at handling that. Twitter, we're a wee bit better on Twitter, but advice, there are other social medias we don't even know about. Our
Yeah,
generation
yeah.
are not in tune.
Yeah,
Oh
we're
my
discussing
God.
things like TikTok and Instagram
Right.
and various things. Yeah, we're starting to go forward with that, hopefully.
Mhm.
Have a constitution TikTok dance. It's true. It's grabbing the attention, isn't it?
Yes,
I mean,
indeed.
I bet if you went out and did a survey of 100 people in Scotland to say, do you think Scotland's got a constitution, yes or no, people wouldn't know. They wouldn't actually know, would they? I never heard about it till about 7-8 years ago. I thought, oh, don't we? Oh, why not? You know, and that's me. I thought I knew things, but obviously not.
It's not just the constitution too, that there's the situation that the SNP and a lot of people say, look, we'll worry about all these things like the currency and the constitution, all that. Well, we'll do that after we've got independence. There'll be no problem then, we'll all attend to it then. The trouble is, if you remember, cast your mind back to 2014, if you haven't got an answer for all these things, then the establishment come out, they strut on the stage and they say, what are you going to do about this? Scotland can't do that. You've not an idea in your heads, you know, and people just lose confidence. You've got to have a policy. And this is what the Constitution is about. Every one of those items is a policy. And people should get entrenched into that policy and say, I like it or I don't like it. Let's know what people think. And somehow we've got to get the politicians to admit they're going to have to commit to policies if we're ever going to get our independence, because the opposition will just demolish us once again.
Right. I think Jean's wanting to ask a question, and then maybe Dawn and the two unnamed folk, if they've got anything to say. Over to you, Jean.
Yeah, I was just going to ask a question about recently. I saw a sort of announcement that policy papers, I think one has come out on borders, but it's not through SNP, you know, official. I think I'm not too sure who it's from. And there's like Philippa Whitford and Bill Austin and a few others are going to be producing papers, like as you just said, Ronnie, to have these kind of answers. Whether they'll be picked up by the official SNP, I don't know. And I was just wondering, have you been involved with any of that? Do people know what I'm speaking about? This initiative, these papers are coming out.
I suspect it's Commonweal.
No, it's not. Yeah. No, it's not. It's
Bill
not
Austin has certainly done some papers for Commonweal on customs and borders. Yeah. I know that historically.
Yeah.
The SNP Commonweal group, of which I'm also a member, has gained significant traction on the NEC. So I think that some of those proposals will be getting taken forward.
Well, no, I'm in the SNP Commonweal as well, but it was like something like was it the Scottish Independence Convention or something? It was a group. It wasn't, because I don't think is Philippa Whitford in the Commonweal. I'm not sure that she is.
Jean, you're quite correct. There were two people and they were actually putting together a policy. It's the Scottish Independent Convention. They're looking at various aspects.
Yes.
I'm a member of that lot now. But it's still being developed.
It's still being, so they're looking at the Constitution as well. Are you involved with that, or?
We've actually made a presentation to them.
Right. Okay. Yes. Yes. Because it wasn't. I knew it wasn't Commonweal, and I thought, well, this is quite a good development because, as you've said, we desperately need these policies in advance of any, concerted campaign. And yes, Commonweal do have some very good policies as well that you think why aren't they being adopted, you know?
Lots
But
of ideas going about. I'm just conscious we've got Dot waiting, so I'm just saying
yes,
the other folk haven't got a chance to ask a question. Last chance, going, gone. If you want to ask a question of the Constitution. No? Okay, if not, we'll move on to Dot. Can I just say a big thank you from us all for your presentation? And we'll get that shared up again with Brian's quote tomorrow saying, get a move on, get on it. I mean, it was really good. Thank you so much for that. You're welcome to stay on to listen to Dot. If you want to stay on, feel free. But without any further ado, I'll move on to Dot.